everyone! Do you find yourself running out of time on the reading section of the SAT? Well, here are some tips to get through the whole section with time to spare. These range from specific time-saving strategies to habits you can pick up during your studying before your test to get faster. So, are you ready to speed run through the reading section? Before we get into things, I want to talk about today's sponsor, Prep Scholar. They're the test prep program that helped me to score 1600 on my SAT, and they're so incredibly helpful with their in-depth videos and articles on concepts and a question bank of thousands of questions to help you prepare. Specifically, their reading strategies really helped me excel on the reading section. And a lot of the tips that I share on this channel, I originally got from Prep Scholar. So if you're looking for a great resource to prepare for your SAT, check out the links in my description below for $50 off their SAT or ACT test prep course, or check out their personalized one-on-one tutoring if you need that extra bit of motivation. Alright, so let's talk about some things you can do before your test to prepare. The first thing you need to do is simply read more. Improving your reading comprehension is the best way to get faster at the SAT reading modules, because the more you read, the easier it becomes to recognize patterns and speed through really difficult blocks of text. I recommend reading at least a few news articles every day. Specifically, read articles in world news, science, and environmental news, and maybe economics. Those are going to be the categories that help you out the most, since those topics come up very frequently on the digital SAT. Most of the SAT is now composed of easier, more modern language, so that's the first step towards improving your reading comprehension, and that'll get you most of the way there. But now that poetry questions are a thing, I also recommend getting acquainted with poems and learning how to interpret them faster. Some of my favorite authors with styles that closely match what would appear on the test are Emerson, Woolf, Shakespeare, Wordsworth. Learning to deal with slightly more up for interpretation, flowery language is a must if you want to finish in time. Be sure you're really keeping up in your English classes and you're not just reading the spark notes for every single book, because reading more difficult literature is a great way to naturally improve your reading comprehension over time. Some of my favorite books of great literary merit that will improve your comprehension but are also fun to read would be Crime and Punishment, Wuthering, and Steppenwolf. For some more niche, easier books to get through that I've read recently and enjoyed, try Letters to a Young Poet or Hour of the Star. And for a huge list of a bunch of great books to read, check out the list on any of the third question of any AP Lit test from College Board. These are some of the books that College Board themselves considers to have literary merit. So there's a good chance they'll pull from at least a few of these or similar sources for SAT questions as well. These can be tough to get through, but if you get through a few of these books, the SAT will seem like a breeze in comparison, and this will help you work through the questions faster. This is literally my biggest piece of advice, and I know that's disappointing to those of you who want a quick fix, but you really do just have to put in the work a lot of the time. So to be fast, it's also essential that you're familiar with all the different types of questions that appear on the reading section. This comes with practice, and I also have a video on this that you can watch here, but being able to look at a question and know exactly what it wants from you and the skills that it's testing in like 1 second just from looking at it is almost like a cheat code, because then you can change up your strategy based on the question and how you solve those types of questions best. And we'll get into specific tips for some of these question types soon, but the one other habit you should pick up before your SAT is how you're actually practicing. It's easy to solve a few questions under normal conditions and feel like you've got it down, only to run out of time on test day. There are 33 questions in each module, and you get 39 minutes per module. So on average, you should have just over a minute per reading question. If you're struggling with reaching this time per question, I recommend mirroring the exact conditions of the test as much as possible, not only on official Blue Book tests, but during your normal practice too. And if you really want to be hardcore, give yourself less time on each question than you'll actually have on test day to put even more pressure on yourself when you're practicing. Also, when you're taking the official practice tests, make sure to take them all the way through just how you would on test day. And maybe even try to take the test near other people in like a quiet but not silent space. Replicating the actual test day conditions in your study sessions will make sure that you can solve the questions under timed conditions when you're feeling nervous on test day. That will not only ease your nerves when you're taking the real test, but also all of that practice will prepare you and help you move faster, since you've done it before under time conditions and you'll better know how you need to portion your time, what questions you're the slowest at, stuff like that. Now onto the easier things. These next tricks are the mini strategies that you can put in practice during your test that can help shave off a few seconds here or there. The most blatant trick like this is the bullet point questions at the end of each module. You almost never actually have to read any of the bullets to answer the question correctly. The answer choices will almost always be referencing the bullet points. The only thing that changes between them is the goal that they're addressing. which is what you're trying to figure out. You just need to ask yourself what the student goal is, and then make sure that the answer choice addresses that. So let's look at an example for this. So here we have a classic student goal question. We see all these bullet points, but we don't really need to read any of them right now. All we need to do is address this goal. The student wants to emphasize the uniqueness of Taylor's accomplishment. So we're trying to find the choice that uses the information to address that goal. And we're trying to emphasize the uniqueness. So the word that conveys the most uniqueness out of these choices is choice D, with the word only. She's the only Black woman who has published a Civil War memoir. All the other choices use the bullet points, but not in a way that emphasizes the uniqueness of her writing her book, which is what half the bullet points are talking about. And always do that double check, because sometimes they will trick you. We have the information right here in the bullet points to back up our answer choice. Her book was the only Civil War memoir to be published by a Black woman. We didn't really have to read all the bullet points super carefully, and that saves us just a little bit of time, which can add up over the entire section. But you need to be very careful with this. Make sure to really quickly check that the answer you selected matches what's said in the bullet points right after you do this, because every once in a blue moon, I've seen them pull tricks where they'll give you an answer choice that doesn't actually match up with the bullets, even though almost always they match up with the bullets. But even with this quick check at the end, this is much faster than reading all the bullets before trying to answer the question, and I'd say 90% of the time or more, all the answer choices will match up with the bullet points. But it's good to be safe and double check anyway. My next tip is to always read what the question blurb is asking you to do first on a question, and then figure out whether you need to read the entire text carefully, or if you can just get away with reading a portion of it. Some question types will ask you to do something very specific with the text, so oftentimes you don't need to read the entire text for these, though it's still important to semi-read it, at least skim it. But the key to going faster on these is to always just read the question they're asking you first before you waste time reading the text with no idea or aim of what you're looking for. Then you can skim the bulk of the text to find this little bit that you need with a clear goal in mind. So let's look at a quick example. So we can see that this is a very lengthy question. It's got a table and a long paragraph. But if we just read this question, it's asking us which choice best describes the data from the table that supports the researcher's claim. So we can just skim this for the researcher's claim, which is right here. They claim that the two languages with very different spoken rates can nonetheless convey the same amount of information in a given amount of time. So in this table, we have the rate of speech and the rate of information conveyed. And if we read our answer choices, we'll know that we don't even have to really read this table, because the only answer choice that addresses the claim is choice B. Vietnamese conveys information at approximately the same rate as Spanish, despite being spoken at a slower rate. We see that this is true based on the data in the table, which is always a good check, but none of our other answer choices backs up the claim that different languages with different spoken rates can convey the same amount of information. This strategy works best with the two text questions, any standard English question, comprehension questions, supporting the hypothesis or claim, the logical transition ones, and fill in the blank questions. And these questions will always be phrased in the same way for the most part, so once you learn to recognize them and see those key phrases, have a set plan in mind on how you approach that specific question best. It's up to you how you strategize this, and I don't know what'll work best for you specifically, and you'll only know that if you practice a bunch and test different techniques out. But I will give you the general advice to not read the full text for those questions if you don't need to, but to definitely read the full text very carefully for the main idea questions and any what logically follows question. These are the hardest on the entire section, in my opinion, and they really require you to have a full grasp of what's going on in the entire text. So probably don't take any shortcuts in reading the text there. There are some strategies that you can use on test day and that come specifically with doing a lot of practice and familiarizing yourself with the question types, like changing your approach and taking shortcuts depending on the question. The student goal questions are the prime example of this, but overall, the biggest way to improve your time on the test is just to read more, get faster and more accurate at understanding the various types of texts on the SAT. The poems are probably going to be the hardest style of language you'll encounter, so if those slow you down, read some more poems in that style. If you find that the more common modern style of text is also throwing you off, read the news every day and just read more in general in the months leading up to your SAT, and that'll help you more than you realize. There are some little tricks here and there, but the biggest two things the SAT Reading Modules test is your reading comprehension under time pressure and your knowledge of the SAT and what they want from you. So getting better at either or both of those will help you get faster. I hope this advice helped you. I know it can be frustrating not to have a 100% guaranteed instant fix to time management issues on the reading section, but I hope this motivates you to start preparing over the long term and putting in the work to improve your time. And I know with dedication and effort put into the right study strategies, you will improve eventually, even if it doesn't seem like it. So best of luck on your next SAT. Feel free to check out Prep Scholar in the description below to get $50 off their SAT or ACT course. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.